Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast, joined by our chief sports writer, Lee Ryder. And Newcastle United out of the FA Cup, defeated 2-0 to Arsenal down at the Emirates Stadium. And Lee, a disappointing result. It took Arsenal to extra time to get the win, but a better performance, I think, than many were expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I did think it would be closer than, we first thought when the draw was made, just because of the way Arsenal have been playing, inconsistent. But, you've got to remember they've got so many quality players, Arsenal, and in the end, that quality, it shone through, late in the game, having missed loads of chances over Mayang. He just kept going, and, when you bring in players like Lacazette off the bench, it just shows you the quality they've got in depth. So Newcastle, unfortunately, they just didn't have an answer to it, and the end result was probably the outcome that we all expected.
Definitely. I think frustration, though, given that Newcastle had their chances. Andy Carroll had two. He put one wide. It was flagged offside, but I think had it gone in, it probably would have counted because VAR would have ruled him onside. And then he had Leno. He forced Leno into an excellent save right at the death. And he performed quite well, Carroll. It's just, I suppose, goals is the one thing missing from his game, and he'll be frustrated that he didn't see at least one of those chances hit the back of the net.
Yeah, it's almost that he's trying too hard in some ways. Like he's trying the perfect shot or the most powerful shot. Just that little bit of finesse where and when it matters, would have probably taken Newcastle through the next round. No doubt about it. But it was just a strange game, the way that, things panned out. And when you thought Arsenal were going to be down to 10 men, with Sean Longstaff getting fouled, I thought, I really fancy this now, going in extra time against 10 men. This could be the game changer for Newcastle. But obviously that got overturned, and the reality was it wasn't a red card. When I first saw it and heard Sean Longstaff's sort of yelp as he went down, I did think it was a red card. But as soon as I seen the replay, I knew that the referee was probably right to overturn it. But it's just Newcastle's luck that VAR is in place. It gets overturned, and then the guy goes on to score the decisive goal in extra time to change the face of the game. So yeah, just sadly nothing went right for Newcastle when it needed to.
Yeah, Smith Rowe, the guy sent off, and he goes up and scores. And that goal, the opening goal for Arsenal, was frustrating from Newcastle's point of view. Tired legs. Kieran Clark guilty of just giving the ball away. I don't think his mind was kind of correlating with his legs. It was a big touch, and Arsenal took advantage of that and ended up, scoring. It was a well hit strike from Smith Rowe. And then you had the second one, a tap in again. Newcastle just looked tired by that point. By the time Aubameyang had the chance to put home, what did you make though of Martin Dubravka's return? He had to pull off a good couple of saves. There was Aubameyang in the first half. There was a Saka header towards the end of the game in normal time, and then a Xhaka effort as well in the first half of extra time on the volley. It was another good save. What did you make of his return?
Yeah, I mean, he's done exactly what we've become accustomed to seeing, really. And, he got man of the match for me, really, the way he played, and he kept Arsenal at bay. He's a class act goalkeeper. Newcastle, if only Newcastle had two strikers who were in that position, who were both fighting for that position, then if they had that competition all over the park and that quality all over the park, then we'd be in a great position. And that's no disrespect to someone like Callum Wilson, because he's a class act. He just wasn't involved tonight. But if they had one or two more players in each position like they have with the goalkeepers, then we'd be in a much better state than we are now.
It's a great dilemma for Steve Bruce to have, because Dubravka showed why he's Newcastle's number one, but Darlow is obviously showed why he's not just going to give up that spot without a fight. You mentioned there Callum Wilson alongside John Joe Shelby was included in the squad, but was omitted as a precaution according to reports. How confident are you, or did Steve Bruce give any inkling that at least one of them, or hopefully both of them, will be all right for Tuesday's game against Sheffield United?
I think that from what it's Saturday evening now. From where I'm sort of sitting now, I think it may have been part of the ploy that these two players weren't quite right for today, but rested for the next game against Sheffield United. And whatever we say about the cup, Steve Bruce isn't getting judged on cup ties, and getting to latter stage, he's certainly not getting judged on winning them. Like any Newcastle manager of the last 60 odd years. But the reality is that the Sheffield United game, as a club, it's probably more important than tonight. Because Newcastle have to stay up. Not only if the current owner continues to stay, they need the Premier League status. They need the money. If he doesn't stay, if someone else is going to come in, they will want to be buying a Premier League club. We're hearing talk that PIF from Saudi Arabia, if they want to stay in talks with Newcastle, then it has to be Newcastle as a Premier League club. They're not interested if Newcastle get relegated. That's what we're being told. So overall, the Sheffield United game, realistically, is probably more important than tonight. Easy to say that now. I would have loved to have went through an FA Cup. I would love a cup run, but when you get pitched out against Arsenal in the third round, then the holders, then it's never going to be easy. And I think Newcastle made a good fist of it, but we're going to be even more disappointed if they lose to Sheffield United. It'd be interesting. I would like to know which game fans would prefer to win. Being realistic, the 3 points Newcastle could collect on Tuesday, which might keep them in the Premier League, or go through against Arsenal only to be beaten by another good side later in the competition, because Newcastle simply aren't good enough to win it, and it's clear that they're not.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because fans' criticism of managers under Mike Ashley is that they haven't maybe given the cups a priority or the ambition for Mike Ashley isn't that the cup competitions are the priority. Yet Steve Bruce tonight arguably played the strongest team he probably could have, given the injuries and the impact of COVID. But this game against Sheffield United is only a few days away, and we saw Lascelles, go off at half time due to fatigue. You saw Kieran Clark, complete 120 minutes of football, and several other of the players who are probably likely to feature at some point on Tuesday. I mean, how big of an impact do you think tonight and extra time is going to have on Tuesday's team selection?
Yeah, very, very big, because they'll have a recovery session tomorrow. Then they'll train on Monday. They'll start getting ready for the game, and then it's the game on Tuesday. There's not a big turnaround time here. So, you've got people like Paul Dummett played 120 minutes tonight. The Andy Carroll chance turned the game for Newcastle, because had that gone in, they'd have been through, got the job done. But they've ended up not getting through and having the extra time. So it's like a double whammy, if you like, of disappointment, because now there's players that have put the body on the line for absolutely nothing in the end. So it was so disappointing the way it unfolded. But as I say, the outcome was what we all expected. And now, if they don't get the win at Sheffield United, then I suppose there'll be people that'll give Steve Bruce stick for playing a strong team in the cup. Maybe he can't win with some things. I don't know. It's just a bit of a toxic cycle that we're going round in. Newcastle, when they're on the brink of complete controversy in terms of should they change manager, shouldn't they change manager, they seem to dig in and get a result. And Sheffield United could be like that. But they've now gone 1 win in 7. I think they've only scored 1 goal in recent games. So it's crunch time. Then something needs to change.
Do you get any hints at who might start, who might not start on Tuesday? You got Matty Longstaff on the bench. He didn't come off. Jacob Murphy started on the bench. He's had a good run in the team of late. Do you think there's any suggestions? Can you see what Steve Bruce is maybe trying to do on Tuesday when you look at the team he played tonight?
I think Callum Wilson will start. I've got no doubt about that. I think Matty Longstaff will be in and around it as well. Jamal Lewis didn't play tonight, wasn't in the squad. John Joe Shelby is another one who hasn't played recently. So I do think there will be a few changes. Carl Darlow will probably come back into the team. Federico Fernandez. So it could be a pretty different team. 4, 5, 6 changes, which they're going to need anyway. But it's, as I said, go looking at the game, it's a must win, because if they get beat off Sheffield United, who haven't won, it's a pretty pitiful effort. It really is.
And you look at how Sheffield United have done today. They won 3-2 against Bristol Rovers, so they're through. And I think they were behind at one point. They've come back and they've won it. And it's that great feeling of, look, we've won a game, team spirit. That's going to have a huge effect, isn't it, on how they set up, how they play, how they come into that game on Tuesday. Whereas Newcastle, they put everything into it. They probably feel like they should have won it. They didn't. I mean, the moods are going to be very contrasting.
It's going to be one of them games where whoever goes into it with the right mentality will win that game. Newcastle, we've seen against Brentford recently, they went in with completely the wrong mentality and they got turned over. If they do that against Sheffield United, then they're in trouble. Sheffield United have got this sort of lower league mentality. They came up from League One not that long ago. They've got nothing to lose in this. For the rest of the season, they've got nothing to lose. They're pretty much relegated. So every game now it's a bit of a swan song for them. I think Newcastle, it's a dangerous fixture for them. Privately, Steve Bruce and his backroom team might say a point would be another one on the board. I don't know. They'd never say that in public. They just don't want to lose that game, because suddenly then the pressure is right back on them. And, the 15th in the table, they're looking over the shoulder. It's a very congested league, but ultimately, this is the season now. Second season for Steve Bruce. We need to start seeing results. There's no excuses anymore.
Do you think the fact that Sheffield United haven't won a game this season, does that put pressure on Newcastle? Because you don't want to be the first team to lose to Sheffield United this season, do you?
No, not at all. And it does put pressure on them, absolutely. Newcastle. It's exactly the type of game Newcastle United could slip up in. It's got. I don't want to sound negative. I've just come off the back of watching that tonight, but it's exactly the type of game that Newcastle would potentially slip up in. And I was talking to someone earlier. I can't remember who I was talking to, but they mentioned the Derby County game, 2007, 2008, when Derby hardly won any matches and Newcastle managed to hand them 4 points. Anything is possible with Newcastle, no matter who's in charge or who's on the pitch. They're just that type of team where something really freaky can happen. So I do fear for them. As I said, if they come with the right mentality, I've got every hope they can get a victory. But if they get it wrong, this is exactly the type of game that Newcastle lose. And I'm sure all the fans know that anyway.
And just finally, you mentioned there they haven't scored. Well, they've scored one goal in about 8 hours of football. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to spend any cash in January. There's, and the loan deals aren't yet coming off, and maybe even a striker isn't a priority for Steve Bruce. But they need to do something, don't they? Because one goal in 8 hours of football, it's not good enough for a Premier League side, especially one, like you say, is looking over their shoulder, potentially teams, getting out of this relegation scrap and dragging them into it.
Yeah, look, it might be one that they might have to go knocking to Mike Ashley and ask him for some money, because if they did lose to Sheffield United and they continue this bad run and they have got Arsenal and Everton away to come, then they might have to go knocking for some more money. That's the last thing Lee Charnley will want to do. But that's how it works. They will be reporting to him saying, we've got a squad that's capable of staying up. Mike Ashley will want the truth from them. And if he's got to dip into his pocket, then they need to sort of come out and say it now, because as the window goes on, other teams, the sellers of players, will sense the desperation of Newcastle United, and they can't go into those last 4 or 5 days of the window, knowing that with teams knowing they're desperate to sign a striker, because if they do, then they could end up getting shortchanged a little bit.
And just finally, can you give our listeners and our viewers any hope of any transfer movement? We've seen Rolando Aaron's go out. We know they've been linked to a couple of players, and Steve Bruce has said there's a couple of things potentially materialising. Can you give our listeners any hope that, sometime in the next week, perhaps something might happen?
Well, I asked Steve Bruce tonight after the game, and he said there's nothing in the pipeline developing at the moment. I have, obviously, they've said it on the record, they're not going to spend any money. And I have heard in the last few days that some of the initial enthusiasm about getting players in on loan has dampened down a little bit. So we hope they can revive a few things, but the reality is even loan deals cost money. It can cost you 2 million quid to bring in someone on loan, and then you have to get someone out the squad. So the way they'll be looking at it from a business point of view is, are we going to pay? Well, they're already paying 3 players 50 grand a week to go down the academy and train and not play. So 150,000 is already coming off the books. Then they would have to spend money to bring someone in, and then they would have to take someone else out the squad who's on big money. So they could be hemorrhaging 200,000 out a week plus the money in for the loan player and his wages and an agent fee. And the way Newcastle are operating at the minute, because they're losing so much money with gate revenue, it's becoming significantly clear to me that they've got money problems, because they know there's nothing coming through the gate, and it doesn't look like there is for a long time. So it's a messy situation, and I'd love to stand here and say there's going to be a couple of loan players coming in next week. As it stands tonight, Saturday night, that doesn't seem to be the case. Whether they can go to Mike Ashley and say, look, we have to do this, or we're going to jeopardise our Premier League position, who knows? This Sheffield United game could hold the key to a lot of things.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time, Lee, down there in London after Newcastle's exit to Arsenal in the FA Cup.